As we know, the Philadelphia Eagles are a team that have been able to consistently make big acquisitions later in the offseason, and with the NFL draft and the first wave of free agency over with, we have officially entered that territory. And even though the Eagles already have one of, if not the best roster in the entire NFL, they might still be looking to make another splash move, as they've been linked to several names that could be switching teams at some point this offseason. So in this video, we're going to take a look at several players that the Eagles could still add to their team. But before we do that, make sure you go down and subscribe to this channel for more consistent Philadelphia Eagles content coming throughout this entire offseason. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video if you do enjoy. Now with all that being said, let's get into the video. It's that time in the NFL offseason where things start to quiet down a lot. I mean, the draft is over, the first major wave of free agency is over, as I mentioned earlier, and now we're just starting to get into OTAs, and those have just started to get going for the Eagles, and we've seen some nice plays from some of the guys that the Eagles have posted to their social medias, including, Jalen Hurts making some nice passes, Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith out here, Quez Watkins making some plays, which it's good to see him obviously doing well and working hard. Well, nothing really too crazy is happening right now in the offseason, but that's exactly why I think another big addition could be on the horizon for the Philadelphia Eagles. And obviously, we've seen this happen in the past. When other teams are relaxed and they're being really quiet, that's when the Eagles are laying in the weeds, ready to strike. Obviously, we saw it last year with James Bradberry, as he was still a free agent after 2 solid years with the New York Giants. It was May, and the Eagles went out and they picked him up, signing him to a 1-year, $10 million deal. And obviously, he was able to have a huge impact in his first season with the Eagles. He obviously was a Pro Bowl alternate. He was named a second-team All-Pro, and he just was one of the best corners in the entire NFL as the Eagles' number 2 cornerback. And now he's under contract for 3 more seasons with the Eagles after they went out and re-signed him this offseason in free agency. And this obviously isn't the only example of the Eagles making a big move late in the offseason. I mean, again, last year they went out and 9 days before the start of the regular season, they made a trade with the New Orleans Saints and acquired CJ Gardner-Johnson, and he ended up having a great year for the Birds in his first full season playing the safety position. He led the league in interceptions even with missing 5 games, and now obviously Gardner-Johnson has since left the Eagles for the Detroit Lions this offseason, but it was still a very good acquisition because they didn't give up very much in the trade, and he was very productive, as I said before, and he helped the Eagles defense on their Super Bowl run. And it doesn't stop there. Back in the 2017 offseason, the Eagles signed running back LeGarrette Blount late into that offseason, and he was a really big piece of that Eagles Super Bowl winning team. He was the leading rusher for that team throughout the course of the season, and he had a touchdown in each of their postseason games, including the Super Bowl versus the Patriots. So again, we've seen Howie Roseman do this before, and I think it's safe to say that he could definitely go out and do it once again, as there have been some pretty big names that could still be on the move this offseason that have been linked to the Eagles at some point or another during the course of this offseason. So let's take a look at some of these guys. So the first guy I want to talk about is Leonard Floyd, the pass rushing linebacker formerly from the LA Rams. And NFL Rumors has said this recently, quote, "The Philadelphia Eagles and Los Angeles Chargers have been linked to linebacker Leonard Floyd," and this is very interesting. I mean, the Eagles obviously value defensive line and pass rushing play, and Leonard Floyd obviously fits that bill, as he's been incredibly productive in his career so far, and especially over the last 3 seasons, all with the LA Rams. In 2020, he had 10.5 sacks, which was a career high. In 2021, he had 9.5 sacks, and in 2022, just last season, he had 9 sacks. So Floyd could definitely come to the Eagles and give them some good production. The only problem with this would be that they could potentially be overstocking at that one position with a more expensive player. I mean, Floyd is one of the better free agents still out there on the free agent market, and I definitely expect him to get a decent amount of money from whatever team he ends up signing with. I don't know exactly how much that would be, but still, the Eagles would have to think about that and how much they would be willing to pay for him, especially when they already have guys on their roster like Hassan Reddick and like Nolan Smith, who they just drafted, that do exactly what Floyd does, rush at the linebacker position. Plus, they got guys like Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat off the edge, so obviously not every one of these guys can be on the field at the same time, and snaps will have to be taken from someone if the Eagles were to add Floyd. Maybe a guy like Nolan Smith suffers in terms of the amount of playing time he gets if they were to add Floyd. So these are the things that the Eagles would have to think about, but I do think if it's for the right price, then the Eagles should go out and do this. Because even if you are sacrificing the playing time of some of the younger guys like Nolan Smith, I think that, obviously the Eagles are in their window right now, and adding Floyd would only make the pass rush even more unstoppable than it already is, and adding a 9+ sack guy in Floyd can only make the team better in hopes of returning to the Super Bowl this season. So I definitely think, again, if it's for the right price, the Eagles should go out and sign him. Now, another guy that could potentially help the Eagles get back to the Super Bowl this season is Budda Baker, the star safety from the Arizona Cardinals, who had obviously requested a trade from the Cardinals a while back, and the Eagles were a team that were mentioned as a possible landing spot for him. Now, Baker is obviously one of the best safeties in the entire league, and although the Eagles have some solid young players at that position, including Sidney Brown, who they just drafted, and I actually think I'm going to end up being a pretty big fan of, it's definitely still a position that they could stand to upgrade at, and adding Baker would give them a surefire star at that position. And he's a guy who's also expressed support for the Eagles in the past. I mean, notably, I think he was on Kay Adams' show just before this past Super Bowl, and he praised Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni, and he also congratulated Jalen Hurts for earning his new contract extension on Twitter. And Boston Scott took that opportunity to try to kind of recruit him to Philly. So, everything considered, he would be a great addition to the team, at least on paper. I just don't know how realistic this would be, because as it's being reported, Budda Baker wants a long-term contract extension that's going to make him one of the highest-paid safeties in the league, and I don't know if the Eagles would be willing to do that. They are at this point top 10 in the entire league in terms of cap space, but still, the Eagles typically don't spend a lot of assets or a lot of money on the safety position, so I don't know if they would be, again, willing to go out and make Baker one of the highest-paid safeties in the entire league. Plus, you have to consider what they might have to give up in a trade to get him, so I just don't know quite how realistic this is. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, and maybe Howie Roseman could find a way to pull this off and make the money work, but I do think that some of these other players are a little bit more realistic than Budda Baker. This is definitely something to keep your eye on moving forward, but again, I don't think it's something that's definitely surefire going to happen or something that's super, super realistic. Now, one guy who I do think is a lot more realistic for the Eagles to add this offseason is Myles Jack, the free agent linebacker who was cut by the Steelers a while back in the offseason. Now, I wouldn't really call it a huge splash to go out and bring in Jack, but I do think it would definitely be a good move to add depth at a position of need, as linebacker is definitely one of the weaker positions on the Eagles roster, and adding Myles Jack would give you that depth that you need. And Myles Jack is a pretty solid player. I mean, he had some really good years with the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially earlier in his career, but he dealt with some injuries that limited him. And then last year he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a year, and he started off the year pretty well, but injuries again limited him down the stretch of the season, and he's kind of had to deal with injuries pretty much his whole career. And something else about Myles Jack is that he also struggles in pass coverage. He's not exactly a good coverage linebacker, so I don't think, again, it would be a huge big-time pickup or anything that puts the Eagles over the top, nothing like that, but I don't think it would be a bad move to get a former starter that supplies depth at a position of need for a very cheap price, because if you go out and sign Myles Jack, he's not going to be super expensive or anything. I think you could probably get him for a one-year cheap deal, a low-risk, high-reward kind of deal that we've been giving to all the other free agents that we've signed this offseason. And just recently, ESPN has projected the Eagles to be the eventual landing spot for Myles Jack, so we'll see if that happens. It's definitely something to keep your eye on moving forward. And then the last guy I want to talk about is Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker from the Arizona Cardinals. And Simmons is a guy who it's been speculated that he could potentially be on the move this offseason as well, ever since the Cardinals declined his fifth-year option for the 2024 NFL season. As he's now going into the final year of his contract, maybe he's going to want an extension at some point soon, and the Cardinals are kind of rebuilding, so maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe they think that trading him now could be a better option for them. So the Eagles are a team that I've seen be suggested as a potential landing spot for Simmons, and I think that this would be a really good move for the Eagles. I think he would be a big addition to that Eagles defense. I mean, he's a really versatile linebacker. He can rush the passer and get sacks while also being able to drop back and have success doing that as well. He's been able to do a lot in his short career so far with the Cardinals. It's been just 3 seasons, and he's been able to get sacks, get interceptions, force fumbles, or rack up tackles. He's just been able to produce no matter what he's doing, and he's just 24 years old. He's only going to get better from here. So overall, I think he'd fit right in with the Eagles, and I think it would just come down to the actual trade compensation. What would the Cardinals want in a trade for Isaiah Simmons, as well as the actual money situation. Would the Eagles want to extend him? How much would that extension be worth? Plus, we don't actually know if the Cards are looking to trade him or not. But again, I think this is definitely something to keep your eye on moving forward, and I think it would be one of those splash moves that would be really cool to see the Eagles make. And again, like I said, definitely not out of the realm of possibility, and definitely something, like I said, to keep your eye on moving forward. Pretty much like I've said with all of these moves, and I guess we'll see if the Eagles want to make one of these moves or another one that I haven't mentioned in this video at some point in this offseason. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this video, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Could the Eagles make a move to get one of these players? I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on it. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any other videos just like it coming in the future. And if you want to watch another Eagles video, you can go watch this one right here. And now with all that being said, again, pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.